This evening, we're doing a special presentation outside of a regular meeting of our annual budget. And first up this evening is our county manager, Ike McCree, who's been working tirelessly for the last 4 months.
You have a number of tired budget team members.
Only just begun.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, North Carolina general statutes provide that the county manager serves various roles, and one, I guess, the most important roles is as budget officer. The statutes further require that the budget officer must submit to the Board of Commissioners no later than June 1st of each year a budget. I'm pleased, therefore, to submit to you tonight the recommended budget for Currituck County's fiscal year 2024. We believe that the budget is reasonable, it is sound, and it addresses important county needs and advances services to the county and to the community in a manner which is in keeping with this board and the county's citizens' values. With this submission, the budget leaves the budget officer and becomes your budget for you to review, modify, amend, and ultimately adopt prior to June 30 to begin the fiscal year on July 1st. I mentioned the budget team a minute ago. I want to go ahead and thank members of the management budget team. In addition to me, Assistant County Manager Rebecca Gay put many hours into this process, as did Finance Officer Sandra Hill, Assistant Finance Officer Karen Kraus, and Randall Edwards, our Public Information Officer, actually is responsible for the formatting and inputting of all the data that you're going to receive tonight before you leave in a budget format that is unique and different than one we've seen before. We are presenting to you what is called a narrative budget. The narrative budget does more than just provide you with page after page of numbers. It actually goes in more in depth with regard to each department and each funding request, the basis for the funding, and gives you and we hope that the public a transparent view of county government. While we have done things the way we've done them, while we are proposing to do things going forward the way we're proposing them. I want to commend our department heads and their teams in particular, because we asked them at the beginning of this budget process to come and join us in this narrative budget process. And so what we asked them to do was for each department to prepare a mission statement of that department. And using that mission statement, then to put together future considerations of what their department sees as a need coming for their level of service or for the betterment of county citizens, to provide a summary of their departmental request. We also asked them to include within their budget request this year their accomplishments that they have, the ways they succeeded in the current fiscal year 2023. And what they anticipated their goals to be for the next fiscal year 2024. All of them responded well, and I think you'll be pleased when you see the way they have responded. I know that the number of times that we've reviewed drafts of this narrative budget, I'm learning something every time I go through it. And so I expect that you will also learn something, as will the public. The other important aspect of this narrative budget is that you will find it, I think, as I'm starting to find it, to be a handy reference tool. It's something that you're going to be able to reach for not only this coming budget year, fiscal year 2024, but also in future years, because we lay out a lot of history and information about certain taxes, how they came to be, like sales tax. And so there's a lot of information that is going to, I think, going forward, be very helpful to you as commissioners and to the public as well. Any budget is challenging, weighing the needs and the wants versus the amount of available revenue.
Bless you.
And this year was no different, particularly still in the wake of the pandemic. In a county with a unique geography that tests our ability to provide services, and in a county that does not have any other local government, as you've heard me say a number of times over the last few months, no other local government to help share in the provision of services to the citizens. Currituck County, this local government, is it within the boundaries of our county. And the other aspects that we're facing are a prosperous and attractive an attractive county. Not a bad thing, but the fact of life is that we are attracting persons who want to live the good life. They want this to be a place that they can call home. And we see evidence of that through a 10.4% increase in population from 2020 to 2022, and a 20.2% increase in population from 2010 to 2020. We also know that we are attractive to visitors, and that we've seen a 9.56% increase in occupancy tax so far this year over last year, and still expect to see 55 to 60,000 visitors come to the county in any given week during the high tourist season. The North Carolina Department of Commerce in 2023 named Currituck County as the least economically distressed county of all 100 counties in North Carolina. Now, I know we've got some issues with that. We've got some issues with the way they determined that. But nevertheless, that's the way we are at least advertised and shown, a prosperous and attractive county. But that, of course, has provided us with some difficulty because of that ranking. We have not been able to successfully be awarded grants, in particular for the Tulse Creek Elementary School. We submitted grant applications twice for $30 million, and were denied both times, in great part because of our Tier 3 ranking, and of course now deemed to be the least economically distressed in North Carolina. Although inflation is trending downward, equipment and construction costs continue to be 2 to 3 times higher than what we have estimated. And we also are finding it more difficult to acquire equipment and material for projects. During one exercise that we did at Commissioner Owen Etheridge's request during one of your budget meetings was his question, what type of tax rate would be necessary in order to bring us back even with our current budget because of inflationary pressures. And so that was worked out to show that there would be equivalent of 4 cents of tax, or $3,244,000 to fund the fiscal year 2024 budget at the same level as our current fiscal year 2023 budget. So again, the inflationary impact is there, and not only hitting our citizens, but their county government as well. As I said a moment ago, geography is also something that causes us some difficulty with providing services, and it sometimes can be more costly because of our geography. We know that we're divided into many different parts. We have the mainland. We have Corolla, which requires one to drive through another county to reach it. We have the North Beaches, which also requires driving through another county to reach it, and up to 13 miles of travel on a beach. We have Knott's Island, which is accessible by only going through another state or by taking a ferry across the Currituck Sound. And Gibbs Woods, which is the same circumstance to reach it, driving through another state or taking a ferry and traveling through Knott's Island to Gibbs Woods. That is a difficulty that and also by not having any incorporated areas, no cities or towns, like 98 other counties in the state, we are it. We're the only county, only governmental entity that's able to provide services to our citizens. When we speak of the budget, we typically think about the general fund, although there are numerous other funds that the county also holds. But the general fund is the one that most people think about, and so I will now focus mostly on the general fund, although all the other funds and their financial information will be contained in the narrative budget document that you'll receive before you leave tonight. The general fund is the principal operating fund for the county. The major counties' operational activities are included in that fund: general government, administration, public safety, education, human services, and other governmental services that regularly touch the lives of citizens. The greatest funding out of the general fund goes 36% to public safety agencies, and 17% of the general fund is proposed to be appropriated to the Currituck County school system. Public safety agencies include the Sheriff's Office, Fire and EMS, the volunteer fire departments, communications, and emergency management. The proposed 17% of the budget for the Currituck County schools is for current expense and capital outlay requests. So let's move into public safety. What will we be funding in this recommended budget? Well, first of all, we have an aging fleet and mounting maintenance costs for patrol vehicles in the Sheriff's Office. It had been the tradition of the county to maintain a regular rotation schedule of replacing a certain number of cars each year and taking older ones out of service. That was stopped for about 2 fiscal years, but we are now moving toward re-implementation, particularly as we see maintenance costs rising and that part of their budget becoming higher and higher. And so this budget will fund the replacement of 15 patrol vehicles and purchase 1 new vehicle at a cost of $842,103. Be aware that next year there will be a similar request from the Sheriff's Office to get us caught back up and back into a regular rotation.
Hey,
Go ahead, Kevin.
I was going to say, and if you can add on that too, and like, you know, you can obviously do math. Somebody can point there and say, hey, what does a car cost? It's not that the car itself, that's the radio. The radio's $5,000. The computers, 30, you know, so there's that whole total number is all the belt. It's the total package. Just so, I mean, like.
That is correct. That's striping.
Just so the citizens can know, like I said, because it's, you know, we don't have Ferraris or anything like that we're driving around.
Right,
So.
that's striping, that's radios, that's lights, that's
It's cheap.
that's computer, docking stations. It's the whole bit to make a patrol vehicle ready for full use by a deputy.
Now, how many vehicles does the sheriff department have? Do you know offhand? Well, it's
we
over
have-
70.
We have counted that. We don't know right offhand.
Okay.
If you ride by there, everything to the right of the jail is to be decommed and sold. And then in the back, there's a couple of those as well. And then there's a couple like we talked about before that are some, I think we have 4 that need transmissions and, you know, and they've aged out too. So like there's some that should have been taken out, like he said, of the years. There's some that should have been taken out last year. And there's some vehicles that are 2 to 3 years old that were supposed to have been taken out, but we're still having to use them. So.
And so again, this effort to resolve that issue by getting us back into the rotation. We also are going to recommending funding a renewed focus on school safety. Unfortunately, due to shootings across the country the last number of years, our students and teachers seem to be more at risk than they should be. And so this budget will recommend allocation of $765,225 to fully equip 6 school resource officers and 1 deputy with patrol vehicle to back up school resource officers if they happen to have to be away from school for some purpose. This will provide for a school resource officer in every one of Currituck County schools. We hope that this will keep students and teachers safe and give them peace of mind going forward. Like our sheriff's office this current fiscal year, as we entered into it, the detention center is having a lot of issues in retaining employees and hiring vacant positions. And so we propose in this budget the solution, much like we did with the sheriff's office as we addressed the issues there successfully, that we will propose implementing an incentive pay plan for detention officers that will allow for step increases in salary upon completion of certain training and certification, and hopefully that will help us cure the issues at the detention center. Our detention center is professionally run, very well run, and that's an important aspect to consider, particularly with regard to funding this incentive pay plan, because there are fewer places of higher liability exposure to a county than the operation of its jails and the safekeeping of its prisoners.
Our jail's used constantly as a model for the state. They send people over all the time because they do such a good job.
And so as we continue to be an attractive place to call home, we can expect that there's going to be more people moving here that have medical conditions, or there's just an increase in likelihood of accidents. And we're starting to see that as our emergency medical services, while still able to respond to the call, is becoming stretched. For example, EMS responded to 4,785 calls in 2018. In 2022, that had risen to 5,882 calls. And so there's been a 22.9% increase in call volume for emergency medical services over the last 4 years.
Recs were up 1,000 in 2022, 300 and some in 21, and 1,320 in 2022. But we're full highway patrol, so that's a good thing.
And much like our aging fleet in the sheriff's department, so too do we have an aging ambulance fleet and consequently mounting maintenance costs. In December 2008, the county purchased 6 ambulances. To extend the life of those ambulances, we rehabilitated them, some more than once, by adding new chassis and placing the back portion of the ambulance upon the new chassis. But all have now reached their end of useful life at almost 15 years of age. And so this budget will propose allocating $750,000 for the purchase of 2 new ambulances, with 2 new ambulances to be acquired over the next 4 fiscal years to totally get that fleet back in the condition that it should be. There's also the need for strategic placement of EMS and fire stations within the county, again, as we become the place that people like to call home. And so one solution we'll be proposing in this budget is that the county will seek to acquire property in Moyock Township for the location of another fire and EMS station, and the budget will include funds for design of a new county-owned station on that property once located.
Mr. Chairman, and with that, we're looking at the west side of 168 for that.
That would be the preferred location. Also, we are looking at where strategically we may place eventually a fire and EMS station, county-owned, in the south end of the county, and that will be probably in a future fiscal year that we begin in earnest the location of a station there.
Mr. Chairman, don't we own the property right there across from LJ Beaner's and Lakeview? Don't the county own a few acres there?
The county does not own it. I think when that Lakeview was approved, that there was supposedly going to be a library location or some kind of public facility that probably is going to be set aside for a public facility there, but there's never been a conveyance of the property to the county.
7 acres.
So, yeah.
That'd be certainly a location that we would consider, also to make sure that the impact of traffic or the road system there would be feasible for a fire and EMS response out of that location. But also understand long-term that with the acquisition of a new station will mean the funding in the future of another ambulance and crew to staff that station. Continuing into fire services, it seems to be a theme, but yet again, even here in this area of service, we have aging fire apparatus fleet. This budget will allocate $1 million for purchase of a 4-wheel drive engine to be based in Corova Beach Volunteer Fire Department at Corova Beach. It's critical that and all the departments eventually receive new apparatus, as many of the departments have apparatus that is 30 years of age. Although they may not have any miles on them, they don't provide for the same type of safety systems that current models of fire apparatus provide. There's also proposed in this budget a 3% increase in operating funds for each volunteer fire department. With capital outlay, this budget will propose allocating $1,641,193 for volunteer fire department service to continue our strong combined system of paid and volunteers that ensure that we're able to provide for fire response and suppression in a timely and cost-efficient manner. Another aspect of public safety are communications. Quick, effective emergency response does not exist without adequate communications. Our communication system also has come to the end of useful life with regard to the equipment that comprises that system. And so we've been working on replacing components of that system to get us back to the place that we need to be. We are pleased, and as we announced at a previous meeting, that the North Carolina 911 Board granted the county $1,964,978 to go toward our radio system upgrades. This budget will propose allocating $500,000 as a match for that $1.9 million. These investments will also replace the microwave system, construct a monopole at the High Cotton Water Tank in the Moyock area, install a dedicated fiber link from this facility to the former sheriff's office to the public safety building, down US 158 to the telecommunications tower behind the high school, to make sure that we have a secure and operable communication system. We also will be migrating from conventional radio system to a trunked radio system, going from a conventional system that requires a first responder or public safety personnel to actually turn manually knobs on the radio to find an open channel, whereas a trunk system will, by computer, search for an open channel and allow for communication without having to manually operate the radio to find one. Last week I attended a memorial service in recognition of Joseph Palmer Knapp's birthday at the Moyock Cemetery. That reminded me and all of us, I'm sure, of the importance this county has placed on education, particularly as Mr. Knapp recognized the importance of education and the investment he made in this county, for which a school is named for him, but also the importance of his dedication to education and his financial backing of higher education with monies he gave to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and a building now named for him that houses the School of Government. And so there's probably not many local government officials or probably even state officials that have not been touched by Mr. Knapp and his gifts for education because of the training we all have received in our careers at the School of Government. And so with that tradition, this budget proposes allocating continued strong support of our public education system in Currituck County, even in these challenging economic times. It is proposed that the local current expense be funded at $13,035,602, and that there would be additional $700,000 fund balance from the school system's $1.7 million fund balance to give them a total local current expense funding of $13,735,602. Now let me explain that a little bit. This board made it one of your values that the school system should allocate $700,000 of their fund balance in order to bring their fund balance down to $1 million. In some counties, the school systems don't maintain a fund balance. They rely upon the county funding and backing them up. But the other value that expressed by this board is that the school system should maintain some fund balance for cash flow purposes. Now, what this board was first talking about during your budget meetings was that they would use $700,000 of their fund balance for capital outlay purposes. But as we've learned, it appears that this fund balance is local current expense monies, and there's a statutory process that would be required in order to move local current expense fund balance monies into use for capital outlay. And so to avoid having to go through that statutory process, it is proposed that we fund local current expense in this manner, allowing for the school system to back fund with $700,000 of fund balance. That effectively gives the school system a 5.03% increase in local current expense funding over the current fiscal year 2023 funding amount. Also, another thing to remind the board, as you recall at your last meeting when we discussed the budget, there was a belief, particularly with regard to school resource officers, that as the county put up $722,000 toward that effort, that the school system should also be expected to put in some money for that effort. And so rather than a 6% increase in local current expense that was initially discussed during one of your earlier budget meetings, that amount has been dropped by 1% so that the schools will be putting in approximately $137,000 into the school resource officer effort. The board should be aware also that going forward in the next fiscal year 2025, you will be seeing a request from the school system for an additional $100,000 for technology capital outlay. It has been the tradition of the county, as I'll speak to in a minute, to actually fund $1,400,000 each year for the school system's capital outlay, but they're going to be asking for an additional $100,000 in fiscal year 2025. Another thing to be aware of is that capital outlay is funded out of sales tax. Let me get to that slide. Funded out of sales tax, and so we need to watch that closely, as Finance Officer Sandra Hill spoke to you about during one of your budget meetings, to watch closely so that we can determine whether we're going to be able to fund the remainder of the capital improvement plan that the school system has put forward. I do think it should be noted that the school system did, upon our request, present us with a 5-year capital improvement plan that allows for us to see what their needs are over the next 5 fiscal years. They broke what amounts to a $15 million capital improvement plan into approximately $3.6 million components over the life of that 5 years. And so this year, this budget for fiscal year 2024 also includes an additional allocation of $3,085,000 for capital outlay. To get to the full funding as the school system has requested, and as this board has indicated it is willing to do, we are suggesting that the school system, for the additional revenue, look to a $300,000 expected allocation of lottery proceeds and a $500,000 allocation from another fund provided by the Department of Public Instruction for school capital needs. That's the same funding that we received last year upon an application made to the Department of Public Instruction. We also are proposing in this budget to fund a new elementary school. This will prevent overcrowding in schools. The installment purchase financing for a new school at Tolls Creek Road, to be, at least it's known now as Tolls Creek Elementary School, will occur sometime this fall. We estimate that the first debt payment of $3.1 million, which equates to approximately 4 cents of a proposed tax rate increase, will be due during fiscal year 2024. And again, also needs to be noted that in fiscal year 2025, there will be the necessity of an additional 4 cents of tax to fully pay debt service that will be due in fiscal year 2025 and every year going forward until that debt is retired for that school. The county continues its commitment to higher education. We've had a long-standing partnership with College of the Albemarle, our regional community college, through the Regional Aviation and Technical Training Center, and more recently through the inclusion of College of the Albemarle educational space within our public safety building, where basic law enforcement training is provided, along with education for nurses, aides, and other general educational courses. This budget will continue that partnership with the allocation to the College of the Albemarle, and the same amount as allocated in the current fiscal year of $243,927. I want to move on now to our team. I think you know that our employees are a great asset who work tirelessly for the betterment of Currituck County. They do so, I think, in many respects, joyfully and happily, and are very satisfied, productive employees, and we're very proud of them and their achievements and accomplishments on behalf of the community. I want to point out that this budget does not include a cost of living increase, but we believe that we are providing our employees with a number of things that that we don't need to do that this fiscal year, particularly in light of some difficult economic times. We contribute to a 401k supplemental retirement plan for our employees. We have a longevity pay program we provide for our employees. We recently, this board approved that the county join the North Carolina Health Insurance Pool, also known as NC CHIP, in order to improve our county employees' health benefit program. It also helped the county reduce our premium costs. Our costs are going to be only approximately 1.1% increase in premium when our previous provider was quoting to us as we were going into this budget cycle an increase anywhere from 19 to 54%. Not only do we avoid a very high and costly premium, but it gives our employees a better health benefit plan. It's a co-pay plan. And it will return their benefit coverage from 70-30 that we had to go to last year to afford the health insurance program to an 80-20 coverage for our employees. And so from what I've heard so far, employees are very appreciative and excited by the new health benefit plan that will be provided in the coming year.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just quick question. One other thing about this new health care plan, it's not something that's not easily been able to get into. You have to, I think that we had to go through a process, and you had to be, not anybody can just get into this health program. It's not that easy, so we.
Yeah, you basically have to be invited. They have kind of an initial orientation about what they're about. They then want to look at your claims history. Only then do they invite you to come into the program. We had a good claims history in the year that they reviewed. We were invited, and now we've become not only a participant in the plan, but a member of the governing board of the plan with 28 other counties and cities in North Carolina. Oop.
Yeah, just skip to the end, Ike.
Yeah. This one, note personnel changes in the proposed budget. We propose the addition of a telecommunicator one in communications. Again, we think that's necessary and essential for the call volume increase that they are seeing and for adequate coverage. Our airport, as you have received reports, is just becoming a phenomenal operation out there. The type of aircraft, the number of aircraft, the amount of fuel that we're selling, we are now in the black as opposed to after having operated in the red for decades. And there's some great opportunities on the horizon for our airport, so we think a lineman full-time is well warranted. For reclassifications, we recommend a detention officer position be reclassified to a Secretary 1 position in the Sheriff's Office. That's a position that's effectively for many, many years been acting in that capacity anyway. And so we feel like it's necessary to actually reclassify that position to what the work has been. We recommend the EMS training officer grade be raised from 70 to grade 77, likewise with the fire training officer. We recommend in Department of Social Services that Administrative Services Officer 1 at grade 70 be reclassified to a Business Officer 1 at grade 76, as that department has indicated that that is really the type of work they need from an employee and will be a better benefit to the business operation of the Department of Social Services. And then finally, we recommend an Accounting Clerk 2 at grade 53 be moved to an Accounting Technician 1 at grade 68, also at the Department of Social Services. I do want to note there's not been included in the proposed budget at this time, but we need to be aware that with Medicaid expansion, assuming the governor signs the state budget, we will have some partially unfunded mandate coming to us. And that will mean we will have to hire approximately 5 income maintenance workers to be able to handle the expected increased Medicaid coverage. If and when that happens, we'll come back to you at the appropriate time to create those positions and seek funding for them. So not only do we have the general fund and many other funds, we also have an enterprise fund. Well, what's the enterprise fund? Enterprise fund are those types of county functions that are business type in nature. And so we have in particular our water department, our sewer department, and our solid waste operations all come out of the enterprise funds as they charge rates and receive revenue for providing a service. Highlighted projects are before you in the proposed budget. We seek to fund in this budget a new reverse osmosis well in connection to the Southern Outer Banks water system. That well will be over by the Wellhead Club building. The Southern Outer Banks water treatment plant expansion also will be funded by this proposed budget. That's in order to keep up with the amount of water demand that we are seeing in Corolla. There's proposed a 16-inch water main upgrade from Sligo to the High Cotton elevated tank in Moyock to ensure again that we're able to provide sufficient water to Moyock Township, as well as the reverse osmosis well number 4 in connection to mainland water treatment plant and the mainland water treatment plant expansion, in order that we're going to be in a good place that we can continue to provide adequate and quality water to our citizens, whether they be on the Outer Banks or they be here on the mainland. Solid waste is another demand that we need to meet. And so we propose in this budget acquiring land for a new convenience center in Moyock Township. I would anticipate and think that the best location would also be on the west side of Moyock, much like a new fire and EMS station. And Panther Landing continues to be, I think, a very popular place for people to dispose of their solid waste, as the only place in Moyock Township to do it. And so this budget will include funding to design expansion of the existing Moyock convenience site on Panther Landing Road. And yet another fund that we maintain is a special revenue fund in the budget. The special revenue fund contains funds that are required to account for proceeds of revenue sources that are legally restricted to expenditures for particular purposes. In other words, a great example of that is our service districts. We create service districts and have throughout the county in order to provide a higher or greater level of service in a smaller geographical area of the county than is feasible to maintain countywide. And those service districts are funded either through taxes or tax assessments and are expected to basically pay their own way for the services that persons within the boundary of the service district receive. As we evaluated our service districts going into this budget process to determine if that indeed was the case, were service districts meeting their funding requirements, we found Corolla Fire Service District tax rate is not sufficient for it to provide revenue necessary for its operation and function. And so therefore we propose in this recommended budget a 1% increase in the fire service district rate in Corolla from 5 to 6 cents. Likewise, the Knox Island Fire Service District tax rate at 5 cents does not provide revenue sufficient to cover the cost of its service. And so much like Corolla, we recommend in this budget an increase in that tax rate by 1 cent, from 5 cents to 6 cents. Hog Bridge Ditch Watershed Improvement Service District, we had a meeting recently where we discussed that it's almost a duplication going on in this particular service district. In 1916, a jury ditch was created by, or commission was created by the Superior Court of Currituck County designating a certain area around the Hogbridge Ditch Watershed Improvement Service District area as a jury ditch, meaning that it would have a governing board, and does now to this day, has a 3-member governing board who have the authority to assess property owners within that jury ditch area for any type of project or services that are rendered to those property owners. Sometime in 2000s, the county created a service district covering the same area that was covered by the jury ditch commission. And so we would propose, because there was discussion about repeal of the county service district, allowing the jury ditch commission to continue on with its regular governance of that area, that there be no tax implemented in the fiscal year 2024 budget for the Hogbridge jury ditch. The Ocean Sands North and Crown Point Service District for Watershed Improvement was created in order to provide for a stormwater drainage system within the Ocean Sands subdivision to abate nuisance flooding that has occurred very often within that subdivision. There has been designed, and there was designed, a 3-phase project within Ocean Sands to fully at one time take care of those issues through the construction of a stormwater infrastructure project. Unfortunately, again, because of inflationary reasons, the cost, the bids came back too high, and so we were not able to go forward on that project. And so, meeting with the advisory board for that district, we tried to and have now established phasing phase 1 of that project, so that there can be some implementation of the desired overall plan earlier rather than later. And so, in a recent meeting with the advisory board and with the engineer for the project, it was determined that an increase in the tax rate to 25.5 cents from 15 cents would allow for them to go forward and within 3 years at least construct enough of the phase 1 project to get to a point where they could then make a determination of whether to go into Crown Point from that point or to go north further into the subdivision toward the lake in Ocean Sands in order to alleviate the flooding situation there. But based upon their recommendation, it is proposed that the tax rate be placed at 25.5 cents within that service district. The Wellhead Stormwater Service District was created to do that, which they have done successfully, that which Ocean Sands District I just spoke about wants to do. They have now paid off their borrowing for their stormwater infrastructure project. Although there are a couple projects that are left, it appears that there could be a reduction in that rate, and so we would recommend that the tax rate be reduced to 10 cents in the Wellhead Stormwater Service District. Also in Wellhead is a service district for solid waste collection and disposal tax rate, or disposal. That district was created for the purpose of providing a contractor to move garbage cans in and out from houses on garbage collection day and then back up to the house. They have sufficient fund balance that we believe that their new tax rate can be reduced to 1.5 cents, and this budget would make that recommendation.
I don't remember. This is kind of left in there.
Ike,
What was the-
do you mind real quick, the wellhead stormwater, what was that tax rate?
Was it 15?
I'm sorry? 15 and a half?
Yeah,
No.
Okay.
I thought
Do you
so.
say
So
Ocean Sands?
15 and a half down to 10?
Yes.
And then the rollback is going from what to the 1.5?
It's going from 1.9 to 0.19 to 0.15.
Okay.
We're also going to be bidding that out again this coming fiscal year, and we'll see how that plays out. But we do believe that with that fund balance, we're able to recommend a reduction in that tax rate. There'll also be presented to you in this recommended budget a capital improvement plan. I know that we've kind of have had a plan, so to speak, in the past here in Currituck County, but we wanted to be deliberate in presenting to the Board of Commissioners for your review and your adoption a 5-year capital improvement plan so that we understand what's coming in fiscal year 2024, but what also is expected to come to you in future fiscal years over the life of that capital improvement plan. This is another area in which we asked our department heads to buy into this process, to provide to us what they forecast as capital needs in their respective departments over the next 5 years. That they came through as you would expect and presented us with a thoughtful list of capital improvement projects. And so you will see in this narrative budget format a capital improvement plan for your consideration and adoption. It's a fluid plan. Items in future can be delayed, they can be eliminated. But at least it starts getting us thinking about where we're going and how we're going to get there. So for fiscal year 2024, we'll be recommending the following capital allocations, which are more specifically laid out in the budget that you'll be receiving tonight. From the general fund, $4.2 million. From the special revenue funds, $1.6 million, and $6.7 million of enterprise funds for capital projects. We talked about in a couple of our at least retreat and maybe a budget session about financial policies. We've had strong financial practice in Currituck County. I think that's shown by the way that we've been able to operate, to construct and maintain some very fine facilities for the benefit of our citizens and community. But a financial policy, much like a capital improvement plan, will give us some idea of where we're going and why we're going there. And so as was presented to you by Assistant Finance Officer Karen Kraus previously, this narrative budget will also include a financial policy section for you to consider and to adopt. Just some highlights of what the financial policy would provide is, number one, of course, we would affirm operations under a balanced budget. We would set realistic and attainable revenue projections. We're going to be fairly conservative. We're not going to be rash and overly hopeful about the types of and amounts of revenue that we might be expecting to come into the county coffers. We would establish guidelines for institution of user fees for various things that the county does. A big and important one is we would require a combined general fund and debt service fund total fund balance minimum of 30%. Why is that important? Well, first of all, it's important for a coastal community that's reliant upon the whims of weather for much of its economy and tax base. And so we want to assure that we have sufficient savings that would be able for us to get through a catastrophic event. We also don't want to have a fund balance so high that citizens are not able to take advantage of that savings, that fund balance, and experience ever-increasing tax rates. So we want to get a happy medium and a happy balance of what the fund balance should be. And that's what this financial policy will establish, and will call for us to look at our fund balance carefully throughout each year to make a determination if we are right in the spot we should be. The financial policy will require, as we already do, that we annually submit our audit to the Governmental Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence and Financial Reporting Program. Doesn't hurt to have more eyes on our audit and our financial operations. Another important item to me is that we will provide a monthly interim financial statement to the board and to management, because you, especially of all in county government, ought to have a full and open understanding of our financial status at all times. The financial policy will also provide for the adoption, as we're asking you to do this year, of a 5-year capital improvement plan to be revised and approved annually. So what does our financial picture look like for fiscal year 2024 and beyond? Well, first of all, During the budgetary process, we received many legitimate, reasonable requests from our departments. But taking a look at those requests, all of them would be worthy of funding. One comes to the conclusion that we don't have enough revenue to be able to fund all that is truly a need and not necessarily just a want. And so in order for us to meet all that I've gone through tonight, to address ongoing needs in the community and to move us forward, this budget would recommend a tax increase in the amount of 10 cents to 56 cents per $100 of property value. As a comparison, our adjoining or adjacent communities experience this listing of taxes. The city of Virginia Beach is at 99 cents. City of Chesapeake, $1.05. Our neighbor to the west, Camden County, is at 88 cents. Southern Shores, and you have to remember that when you live in a town, you're also paying county taxes on top of that. And so a Southern Shores resident is paying Southern Shores town tax and Dare County at a total rate of 63.63 cents. Kitty Hawk, same. Dare County taxes on top of that are at 70 cents. And Duck, with the Dare County tax, is at 62 cents.
Chairman, if I may ask the county manager, so Southern Shores is 63 cents plus Dare County's 41, so they're paying $1.04.
No.
Oh, it's,
So you see,
that includes it, okay.
Southern Shores plus the Dare County. Looking ahead, as I said a few moments ago, a full debt payment will be required for Tulse Creek Elementary School in fiscal year 2025. That will require an additional 4 cents of tax, which will set the rate at fiscal year 2025 at 60 cents per $100 of property value. So the fiscal year 2024 recommended budget, and again, this is the general fund budget, is $330,167. What happens next? The recommended schedule for you as you move toward adoption of a budget is after tonight, that there will be time that we can set aside before your meeting next Monday, if you desire, for a budget work session. After you've had a time to go through some of this and digest it, if you have any questions or want to raise any issues or modify what is proposed to you, June 19 will be scheduled a public hearing on the budget where you will receive comments from citizens that night, but certainly citizens may feel free to communicate as laid out within the narrative budget, communicate with you through email to the common email here at the county, which will be forwarded to you, or any other means or medium that they want to communicate with you about the budget. And you can possibly adopt the budget on June 19th or any date thereafter, so long as the budget is adopted prior to July 1. With that, the this recommended budget will be posted on the county website, and a hard copy will be available in Leanne Walton, clerk to the board's office, here in the historic courthouse, beginning tomorrow. And there's an email for comments that can be sent to you, commissioners, from the public about their thoughts on the budget.
Chairman, so did I hear earlier saying if we did nothing, if we funded nothing new, the schools, nothing, just to stay as last year's, we'd have to do a 4% just to maintain what we did last year?
That was the
A 4
exercise that we
4
went
cent
through.
tax, I mean.
Yes.
Okay, and then this coming year, we're doing 4 cents towards the new elementary school
That's correct.
to help for the first payment on that.
Yes.
And then we're talking, okay, so that's, okay. Basically leaving us 2 cents to take care of everything else.
Well, and a big part of that 2 cent is going to go towards either capital improvements
Yes,
here in this
yeah.
building and capital outlay for the schools, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns? From
No, we're fortunate. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes, but, for what the other counties charge, and like I said, we're very fortunate here for the services that we have with zero help from municipalities. So for the ones out there in the public that want to complain about it or whatever, you saw the other tax rates from the neighboring counties. Feel free to pack your stuff up and head that way if you don't like it. I strongly stand behind that comment, because when people want to complain. So, I mean, we got it good here, and I appreciate all that the staff has done on it, because it's a great place to live.
Well, I also encourage each of you to communicate with me or any other members of the budget team to help answer any questions you might have or to flesh out any recommendations that have been made in the proposed budget.
I believe we're getting a hard copy.
You will tonight before you leave,
Are we
yes.
getting a soft copy too?
We can make it available to you. What format would you like it emailed directly, or would you like it in a
I'd love it
format?
on a stick, please.
Okay, we can do that as well.
Yeah, we've always
Yeah.
gotten up.
Because it's one of those special zip drops, because it's so big.
You know,
Nah,
I
not
think
that big.
it might be able to fit just on a typical.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ike. I know you and the staff put a ton of work into it. It seems like every time I called you, you were in a budget meeting somewhere and never answered me for the last several months, so. All right. All right. Well, that means your phone's gonna start ringing. Any other comments from the board at this time? Okay.